one, the only King Ricochet, and you are listening to State of Pro Wrestling.
Jackson, you're tuned in to State of Pro Wrestling. Follow me on social media at the Young Gun RJ. Thank you very much.
You know, my man is the greatest. My man, he does.
Hello, fellow pro wrestling fans. My name is Freddie Fredrickson. This, the biggest episode of State of Pro Wrestling show of all time. We are joined tonight, Greg Gagne. How you doing tonight, Greg?
Good, Fred. Thanks for having me on.
And
who am I on top of here? There's some guy underneath me here. Who is that?
JD, who let this guy in?
Oh, Rampage Savage. Oh, it's so good to see my old buddy.
Old buddy, I'm your young buddy. You're my old buddy.
Oh, all right. All right. He does everything I ask him to do. When I train him, he's like that. Never argues with me, follows what I tell him to do. And then when I see him in the ring with someone, he's trying to emulate somebody else besides him. Tries to be somebody he's not. And it drives me nuts.
No, you're into my bad guy stuff.
Now we can talk.
We might have to jump on with the episode too. We were just talking about doing a Rampage episode. We had looked at everything that Rampage has done. That last match that we seen against AJZ, applying that Gagne chokehold.
Yeah, the sleeper.
Really? I haven't even showed you that yet, so you don't even know how to do it right.
You've seen them. You saw the.
I'm gonna put you out with it the next time we get in the ring.
You saw the match though. You saw that match.
Did I see it?
Yeah, you said you gave it a 7 out of 10, and that we were gonna watch it together. So
I gave you a 7 that high, huh? No, he works hard. He's doing a good job. He's doing a really good job. All right, where are we going?
We haven't heard
Let's dive straight into it. Let's dive straight into it. Let's talk about the podcast you have with Magnum TA. JD, could you pull that up? We got Greg. Could you talk about the podcast you have with Magnum TA going on?
Oh, with Magnum TA, yeah, we're doing every week. It's called Straight Talk with the Boss, Magnum TA, and myself. And we've been on 8 weeks now, and the audience is growing every week, and it's been a lot of fun. And Magnum TA, not very familiar probably with the AWA fans, but around the world, he is first class and a great guy. Great guy.
Absolutely. How did that possibility come up? How did you choose Magnum TA, or how did you two come together?
Well, we came together actually with Power Town, where wrestling lives on. And I got a call from Steve Rosenthal. Steve was the first man to do action figures of professional wrestling back in the 80s.
Nice. Could we jump over to that other link, JD, really quick? Jump over to the action figure link while he's talking about it. Sorry. Bring fans here. Just a second here. Kind of running a brand new show. But yeah, I just wanted to bring fans up to that website and show them the action figures so we can talk about it live here on air.
All right.
Sorry about the little choppiness here.
Yeah, that first wave of action figures sold so freaking fast, dude. Goodness.
There's Nick Bockwinkel and Tito Santana.
Oh, Bockwinkel. Who was
Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard? They had a huge feud an I Quit match. It was really famous in the really all over the country, and so that's a couple more of them on there. We got quite a few of the great wrestlers, the Rock and Roll Express,
Nice.
the Missing Link. This is our first Remco line coming out, and sales have gone through the roof in the first 3 days.
Awesome, man. That's great news. Very
So
cool.
that's
Very
how I got teamed up with Magnum TA, because Steve Rosenthal had called me and he said, "You want to get back in the action figure business?" And I said, "Well, what do you have in mind?" And he said, "Well, we'll make about 12, 14 figures, and then we'll get out." And I
Okay.
said, "Well, what figures are you thinking of making?" And he said, "Well, I want your help on that." And I said, "Well, let's go back to the people that built this industry. Vince McMahon did not build the industry. It was
Absolutely.
built back in the 50s off the DuPont network out of Chicago. Went on the air in 1950 and ran through 1957. It was the #1 TV show across America. And that's where my father got his start, along with Lou Thez and Hardboiled Haggerty and Yukon Eric. Just Wilbur Snyder, the Crusher, Dick the Bruiser, Hans Schmidt. It was just Don Leo Jonathan. They're the men that really built this industry. And so Steve asked me to get on the horn and start signing talent. And I've got 255 talents from the early 50s, even the late 40s, all the way up to the 80s. Men, women, the little people, announcers, referees, we've got them all. And just keep watching Powertown, powertownwrestling.com. And our slogan is Powertown, where wrestling lives on. Hacksaw Duggan, we had in there.
Nice, man. Legend. We seen him last year at Wilmer Mania, I believe.
Oh yeah,
really? Good.
I got a picture of him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. This is a great product. Great hustle to help get money in wrestlers' pockets as well, man. It's a great product. How much are those action figures going for?
I think the Remco ones are $29.95. The Ultra ones, which were sold out, or no, I think there's still some left in the Wrestling Collection.
Okay.
Go to WrestlingCollection.com. They still have a few of Vern, few of Lou Thez, few of Brody Hansen, Magnum TA, and that.
Really just a lineage
those sell for $49.95, and Kerry Von Erich, one of his went for $1,500 to the collectors the other day. They're going crazy over this stuff. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I suppose everything with that.
If you go online to the collectors, you're going to pay anywhere from $500 to $1,500 for one of them. So that's why I say if you go to the WrestlingCollection.com, they still have a few left. And I think they might up the price on those, but they were $49.95. Maybe they're up to $79.95 now. But everybody said they are the best action figure on the market today, bar none. They're bigger than all the other ones. They're realistic. You see Brody and Hansen and Vern and Lou Thez and Magnum TA and Kerry Von Erich. They are good. There's Bobo Brazil and the Missing Link.
I'm loving the detail on these.
That's the feedback we're getting from around the country.
And the title belts too, the history really, like you said, WWE really, I feel like they didn't really tell they kind of told their revised history of everything. And if you went on the network, there really isn't much of AWA or much of the territories. And I feel like the fans are kind of missing out. I feel like a lot of fans I know are a friend of the show, Reverend Ricky Norin. I know he does a lot of old tape study on YouTube, but it's a shame it could be more focused.
Well, they don't want it to be. That was Vince McMahon's philosophy. He wanted to take over everything, and he bought out everybody's inventory, their wrestling tapes and everything. So he owns everything. And, it's a shame because the people that really worked and built this industry were the people that started in the 50s, and they need to be recognized. You know, it's good history. I mean, that's how the sport really took off on network TV. Vern used to tell the story the first time. What they would do is they had all these great stars on the network. Vern was the first athlete besides Babe Ruth that made over $100,000. And that was in 1951.
All right.
Because he was on there every week. So what the territory promoters would do, they would bring a couple off of the DuPont network and put them on their card. You might have Lou Thez and Dick the Bruiser in St. Louis, and you would have Antonio Rocca and Killer Kowalski in Boston. And then you would have Vern used to tell the story, him and Pat O'Connor were as a tag team going to Buffalo, New York. Got on the plane was late taking off, late getting into Buffalo. They get into Buffalo, it's a snowstorm.
Dang. Oh no.
Tonight. They got to the arena and it was for wrestling. They turned away about 25,000 people that night in a snowstorm in Buffalo.
Wow.
So, you know, that's the history that nobody really knows about, you know, so that's what we're trying to bring it back and tell the story. You know, it's like the Indian Wars. I mean, you know,
right.
and all that. I mean, what built America and who built America? Who built professional wrestling? Those are the people that should be honored. And that's what we're doing.
Very cool. Is that what you're kind of the focus of the podcast is, telling those stories as well?
Yeah, we do. Well, we cover Magnum TA. I called him up and brought him as a partner because he has a good business head on his shoulders. And nice. I handle the talent and he handles the business end with Steve and a couple of the other partners that we have. But we started this podcast and he's a phenomenal guy. And, you know, his career was cut short. He got in a car accident. He was coming back from a match and he was driving his Porsche. He went around a corner and it was raining and he slid off the road and hit a tree. Took him 6 hours to cut him out and he had a broken neck and a broken back. And he sat in there for 6 hours. Yeah, he's a tough son of a bee. And
his story.
Yeah. And that's a tragic because he probably would have been
really like earmarked for greatness during that era, wasn't he? Kind of had that.
Yeah, he would have probably been the NWA champion over Flair.
Right. And he was kind of from that Texas territory, that WCCW, is that right?
No, he actually came.
Jesus.
He was an amateur wrestler, real good amateur wrestler. Never really had any training. And he started out in Portland, Oregon with Don Owens. Okay. And then with Bill Watts. And when he got with Bill, that's when he learned them. Well, he learned a lot from Don Owens out in Oregon. But I mean, his story, you should have him on sometime. His story is unbelievable. Unbelievable what he went through and how he got into the sport. Great amateur wrestler and really didn't have any pro training. He did it all on his own in the ring as he went along.
Yeah, very inspiring. Everything you and Vern and everybody with the AWA had done, learning the history here, because I was born in '83. And it was kind of already, most of the exposure that I had to wrestling was already, WWF and everything. Right. I didn't know much about AWA until I grew older and started really digging. And then I bought this box of magazines. A lot of them were Norman Keatzer magazines and little rosters and little match cards from like Mankato and St. Peter and New Ulm and some of these small towns around the area that I was. And you were seeing huge names like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, and everybody here. And it just blew my mind to think that, wow, like you said, from that 50s to the 80s there, where you guys really were, just how huge AWA was, that it stretched down to Las Vegas and up to Canada and down to Chicago and over. We were out in Milwaukee and got to take a picture with the statue.
The AWO is the largest territory of anybody in the country. We were across Canada. We were in Winnipeg, and then TSN, when they came on board, they would film the matches in Winnipeg and then play them across Canada. And
Nice.
then from Winnipeg to St. Louis, all the way to the West Coast. And why so many people and why the AWA had the best talent all the time was they only ran with maybe 18 or 20 guys tops. And here's for instance, where TA was out with the Crockett group. They wrestled 365 days out of the year, never had a day off, twice on Saturdays and Sundays. The talent came here because Vern gave everybody the whole month of May and the first 2 weeks of June off every year. And then in the summer, we only ran.
Breaking up here.
We were balls out all the time because that's when we drew the biggest money. And the talent was paid well. Considered the best payoff man in the country was Vern. And guys did well and enjoyed it. And everybody wanted to come to the AWA.
Interesting. It's amazing to think about how much things have changed. Can you talk about kind of the evolution of pro wrestling as a whole from that time through to?
I mean, it's involved. I mean, when we came up, you had to know how to wrestle. And Vern trained 144 wrestlers over his career. Only about 4, maybe 6 didn't make it to the main events.
That's amazing.
And we would be 6 hours a day, 6 days a week in an old barn with no windows and a light bulb over the ring. And we went from September to about March 1st.
Is that farm place? Is that farm place still out there, or is that what it was?
It's still out there, but the barn's gone. Yeah, the property was eventually sold, and the house is out there. Yeah, but no, it was I've been working with a little guy down here in the corner, Rampage Savage, and I tried to incorporate what we learned and how we did it. And Tiffany Stratton worked with her.
That story was very cool. Very cool how those dots came together and how far she's come. Would you like to share that story with us?
Well, we will, yeah. But I got it. First, I got involved with Rampage Savage and at JDX. Jessica is a real name. Her parents were a friend of mine, knew their parents, and she wanted to become a wrestler. And they asked me if I'd train them. And I said, God, I'm at the point in my career, I don't want to, it's too hard to really get out there and train because you have to demonstrate and you have to do all that. I've had 5 back surgeries and they want to do a shoulder replacement on me. But I went out to Ken's camp with her. And then I saw the guys that he had training, and he probably had, what do you think, Tyler, did he have 20 guys when you were there?
Yeah, I think so, about that number, maybe a little bit more.
And out of that group, I only picked out 2 people that I thought had a chance to making it.
And what year was that? Do you remember?
What, 3 years ago, Tyler?
2020, yeah, 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of them was Tyler, and then JDX was the other one. Some people, I think, take advantage of, because a lot of people want to be wrestlers, so these guys will train them and charge them. I didn't charge anything to my people, and they really are never going to have the opportunity to make it, And I don't want to work with anybody that I don't think is going to make it, and I don't want to take money from them. And I've trained these guys and never asked them for a dime. And Rampage has come a long ways. He's still got a ways to go, but I think he's there. It's just now getting him the opportunity with somebody. He was down at the WWE, got him a tryout down there, him and JDX. We were there 2 days and COVID hit and they shut it down.
The hurricane hit.
So unfortunately, the guys today don't get the experience that we did, wrestling every night. And with the talent that we had, the AWA had always the best talent in the country. And what was really amazing to me was the different styles. The Crockett's came in to the AWA and watched our TV show and how Vern built the TV show and how he built the arenas. And they spent about a week with us. And then they went back and they used that same formula in the Charlotte area, in North Carolina, and they did phenomenal. It was really because the guys had to wrestle. You had to learn the holds and the counter holds and and how to leverage your opponent and get him off balance. And what was really funny to me, or amazing to me, was there was different styles around the country. The Crockett's, Eddie Graham in Florida, Vern, Fritz von Erich, and the Hearts. Those were the people mostly responsible for probably 98% of the people in professional wrestling. Other people that trained them didn't know what they were doing, and they were kind of the feeder system. And like when we had Billy Superstar Graham, he'd had a pretty good run with us, and now he was going to Vern worked with Vince Sr., and he was going to send Billy up to the East Coast. So he'd do the interviews, and then he'd come in. When he'd finally come in, they'd had him wrestle Bruno, and the place was sold out. But they'd have about 6 months of TV before they came up. And everybody that went from the AWA to New York wrestled in the main event.
Nice.
When they sent people to us, and I'll tell you, a guy, I love the guy to death, Pedro Morales. Pedro came into the AWA, and he never made it past the third match on the card. And the reason was his style wasn't conducive to the way the public was trained in the AWA. They wanted wrestling. New York was punch and kick, and that was about it. There wasn't a lot of wrestling in there. You had a few guys that could, but not too many. And that happened all over the country like that. So when I spend time with Tyler and training him, I try to train him the same way we were trained. We don't have the luxury of those 6-hour workouts. So it's a little tougher today to take the time with that talent to get him really ready. But he's come along a long way, and he's just about there.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. What were some of the things that you learned that you try to pass on? I think you kind of touched on it there. Are there any specific things or lessons?
Yeah, one of the big lessons that we learned is we listened to our coaches. And when they told us to do something and they demonstrated it, we did it that way. The young talent today, they all think they know it and they want to do it their way. And it's very frustrating to work with some of those people. And that's why when I see somebody that has talent, I will try to pick them out of that crowd and then work them the way I think they should be worked if you want to really be successful in this sport.
Very cool. I want to thank you, Greg, for joining us here. State of Pro Wrestling, Rampage Santana joining us. JD, could we jump back to that action figure, kind of scroll those action figures for a little bit, and then we'll jump into a question from a friend of the show, Daniel Rose, going to jump on and ask us a question about the action figures.
Okay.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Fans can order those straight on the website, or what are the other outlets to purchase the action figures?
You only can get them. They're all pre-sales.
Okay.
So you have to get on them right now because once they're sold out, you can't get them again.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, all the legends. Amazing to hear. Nick Bockwinkel there, and you said all the way back to Vern.
Yeah, there's the Missing Link and Bobo Brazil and Hacksaw Duggan. I mean, we got
It's amazing to know that the history of these guys too, the different characters, who they were as they traveled through the territories as well, and as you said, evolved and grew.
These two guys had a heck of a run in the Charlotte area. Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA in an I Quit match. And then they had a Series 7 matches where they wrestled seven, like a World Series match, format. And
nice.
They were selling out everywhere. And they had hellacious matches.
Interesting. We're gonna have to do a little deep dive on that. I like that.
Very
cool.
I mean, I mean, if anybody wants to, go to PowertownWrestling.com and look what we've got. We've been working on other merchandise opportunities, and we have 255 people on board. We've got to try to take care of all of them. So we're opening up some other avenues here that we're working on so that, because the action figures, they take time. Our Ultra figures take a good 3 months to build, and they cost us $27,000 a mold.
Ooh.
Yeah, wow. That's in the Ultra group. But when you see a Brody or with the scars on his head and the detail that is in those, and Vern and Luthez, nice. My God, they're unbelievable. And everybody, including the manufacturers, say we have the best product on the market, bar none. And now with the Remco line coming out, our Series 1 and that, it's just, we've had great sales the first 3 days. It's been unbelievable. And we hope it keeps going. So if you want one, go to Powertown, get on there and order your figure.
Yeah, very cool. Great news hearing that with the resale market too, like you said, with the Von Erichs, with the Claw movie and everything. Just to hear it, like almost like the shoe where there's that second market stuff going on now. It's great to hear.
Well, what we did with that first series, we only made it 6,000 or 8,000 of them.
Okay.
We just want to have a feel out because a couple of guys on our board are collectors, and of course they want it for them, But
yeah,
it's hard to make a business just making these. We're selling them for $49.95 or $79.95, and Kerry Von Erich was sold for $1,500 the other day online. Ooh. Vern and Luthez and Brody and Hanson and Magnum TA, they're going anywhere from $500 to $1,000.
Wow.
So who's making the money here? The collectors.
Very cool opportunity for people to jump on right here.
Really
can we get that question from a friend of the show, Daniel Rose?
What's Daniel got here?
I don't know. He's got a great question. Here we go.
Let's hear him. Daniel?
Oh, no.
Oh, we have no sound.
We got audio error here. Bear with us. Otherwise, Brandon had joined us here from Coast to Coast as well. Brandon, if you got a question, go ahead and throw it in the comments. It'll pop up right here. Or anybody watching. Oh, no. Sad face.
Darn it.
All right. I'm going to paraphrase Daniel. I think he was asking, are these action figures made more for being collectibles, or like you said, some of the action figures were going for quite a few on the resale. So maybe they are meant to be kept in the box as like a collectible, or are they meant to be taken out of the box and like played with? I think that was his question.
Okay. The Ultras are not, the box is really unique. When you open it up, it tells the story of the individual.
Oh, wow.
And they're really more for collectibles on the Ultras. The Remcos are more for, for the everyday.
Smashing and
right.
wrestling and bashing.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then I think he had a follow-up question, which was, is there any news on the second line yet?
Was what?
He was wondering if there was any updates with the
Series 2?
Yeah.
Series 2 will be announced in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
And I can't let it out yet because I'll get my butt chewed by my partners. It'll be fantastic, though.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We kind of talked about that lineage earlier. When we were out in Boston, you could kind of see the history. You know, people who had been trained by Killer Kowalski were now training the next generation who are out wrestling. You know, like Alec Price, Channing Thomas. You know, we interviewed Kurt Gannon down there from St. Louis, and he kind of talked about, you know, how the people who had trained Harley Race, you know, trained them, and, you know, they're kind of training that next generation. It's interesting seeing you here passing that on to the next generation. You know, we talked about JDX and this guy below here, Rampage Santana, one Slammy Davis Jr. Can you kind of take us into that process? You said you were really selective in choosing these people. What stood out about people to you?
They're both very athletic. And JDX listened to everything I told him. Rampage Savage was a different deal.
Yeah.
Both were terrific. And, you know, when they listen and they do it the way it should be done, it really turns out well. You know, some of the young guys today, they think they should be doing all this flipping and flopping around. But you learn the basics first. Once you learn the basics, and you can control the match, and that's what they need to learn. You know, today, a lot of these guys have no idea how to wrestle a match. They go in there and they do the flipping and the flopping, and they think, oh, my God, don't we look good? It's a contest. It's a contest. And if it's not a contest in there, you're not going to be successful down the road.
Absolutely. One of the questions we had coming in
Does that make any sense to you guys?
What's that?
Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to follow it up with one of the questions we had sent in was wondering if you could speak on kind of the your thoughts on the techniques and athleticism, you know, in your era versus today. Like, I think you were kind of touching on that with the technique and everything, where maybe some people are relying too much on the athleticism versus the technique.
Yeah, well, you have to learn the technique, and you have to learn the holds, how to get in and out of a hold and into a tough, when you're in a tough situation. And today the kids think that you just, you know, and part of it has to do with TV, because, you know, we used the TV to build the arenas. Now the TV every week is, you know, big matches all the way through. And if there's not a story in the match and it's just flipping and flopping, people will give you that and applaud and give you a wow, but it won't make you money down the road.
Great point. Great point. And I love that. Rampage, anything you want to jump in and any follow-up questions here?
Gogo just wanted to hit me over the head with a tin can here.
Uh-oh.
Rampage, what do you got?
Uh-oh. You got to unmute?
Can't hear him either.
He must have muted Rampage. You know, that guy's always too loud. It's probably for the better of the show that we leave him on mute.
I want to hear what he has to say.
Right. Oh, no, Rampage, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. You got to unmute.
See, this is why he's hard to work with.
Right. Well, no. Maybe sign off and sign back on. Try that. Well, let's play the JDX clip here real quick. We got JDX. He sent in a video for the episode here tonight. The biggest episode, State of Pro Wrestling tonight.
Oh, how you doing, buddy? Can't hear him.
No. None of the videos playing. Unfortunate. Well,
You guys were prepared pretty well for this.
Hang on. We're gonna try this. We're gonna try something else, but I have to come into the studio. Hi, everybody. JD here. Normally, I'm on the other side of the screen, but we're gonna try this here and see if this works.
otherwise, I could forward it to you on my messenger here.
Okay.
Let's see if this works. Hold on. I think we got it here. I think I got a makeshift plan here. Let me know. Please let me know if you guys still can't hear after I start it again, please. Oh, and hold on.
Right.
Rampage is back in too, so let me get him back in. All right, let me know.
Rampage.
Let me know if you guys can hear this.
Rampage, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Questions. I don't really have a question. I just want to show appreciation, gratitude, and give flowers to you, Greg Gagne, and say thank you for everything that you've ever done for me and the things that you continue to do for me. I know that I can speak for myself and Slammy Davis Jr., Rampage Santana, when I say that we'll forever be Greg Gagne guys. So thanks, Greg. Appreciate you, man.
Darn it. We lost him. Well, JD,
You try to play it one more time here.
It's a video, Greg.
Oh, it is. He can't hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He sent in the video earlier. You want to play it one more time, JD,
Okay,
so it'll be smoother?
Oh, I heard it.
Questions. I don't really have a question. I just want to show appreciation, gratitude, and give flowers to you, Greg Gagne, and say thank you for everything that you've ever done for me and the things that you continue to do for me. I know that I can speak for myself and Slammy Davis Jr., Rampage Santana, when I say that we'll forever be Greg Gagne guys. So thanks, Greg. Appreciate you, man.
Man, thank you. That was very nice of him. He's a heck of a guy and a great athlete. And you'll see him, both these guys, hopefully in the near future with the WWE. Or I don't want to send him to AEW because I don't like the style of AEW.
Okay.
But there's other avenues out there too that we're working with that I might
Absolutely.
have get a shot here pretty
That
soon.
Rampage really wants to get onto.
Of course.
Oh, there we go.
You know what I'm
got
talking
some-
about. Greg knows what I'm talking about. We won't say things out loud here, but Greg knows what I'm talking about. He knows.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can't even see you now.
I go.
Lighting Rampage.
That's like oops, you dropped something and it's someone's name, you know. I get weird about stuff like that because
Well, then you might struggle for the next couple of years before you get a shot.
It's been interesting watching Rampage over the last couple of years since we've crossed paths. I mean, we were looking at a lot of the matches. You talked about Impact, kicked off like last March, I think it was, against Ace Austin. Amazing match there. And just the run you've been on with MAW. We think MAW, let's jump over there as a segue real quick to Greg. Popped up for Midwest All-Star Wrestling a couple months ago at a meet and greet with Bret Hart. Do you have a relationship with Bret, or do you guys share stories with like the familiar background with Pops who ran the territory and infamous trainers? Do you guys share stories like that, or?
Yeah, no, Stu Hart was a hard trainer too. I mean, his camps were like burns. I mean, when you survived that, people in the industry knew when you came out of those camps, you were ready to go. And I remember the first time Jim and they sent us down to Atlanta, Georgia, and we were supposed to wrestle Cowboy Bob Orton and Dick Slater. They were their tag team champions. So we get there the first night. We're in Columbus, Georgia. And, we didn't have any TV exposure down there or anything. And we wrestled Rip Hawk and Dr. Jerry Graham, who were both at the end of their careers. And we wrestled them for about 23 minutes. Columbus, Georgia was sold out. And we had the people standing for probably 15 to 18 minutes of that match, which was unheard of. And then when we came back in the locker room, the promoter got on us. He said, "Well, what are you doing?" What do you mean? What are we doing? We're having a match. Yeah, but what are my guys going to do? And I said, well, good luck. You know, I don't know what they're going to do. So what they did with us, well, what they ended up doing then is they booked us against Bob Backlund and Jerry Briscoe in clean matches the whole 2 weeks we were down there.
There's some gems right there.
Yeah, and they never got us to match with Orton and Slater. They were afraid to put us in the ring with them. And it was funny when the first time we went in the locker room, a guy named Brute Bernard, and he was a rough old guy and tough guy. And him and his manager were in the locker room, and Jim and I went and sat down, and we introduced ourselves. And I won't use the words that he used, but he said, "Your father is a CS." And I said, "Well, I'm sure he thinks you're the same. You're the one too." And he looked at me and I said, "Do you have a problem? Do you have a problem with me? Do you have a problem with Vern? I mean, here, we can have it out right here." And he looked, and him and his manager had him walked into another dressing room. So Jim and I followed him in and sat down next to him. I said, "Do we have a problem?" He said, "No, we don't have a problem." And right then, both Jim and I realized that coming from the camp we came out of, people respected us and they were leery of us, but they didn't know what we could and couldn't do. Because, I mean, we did an hour of submission wrestling with Billy Robinson. At the end of that was our last hour, was submission wrestling with him and Vern. And my God, we were pretty salty, and we weren't the biggest guys, but we weren't afraid of it. They told him when we got down to the camp, they said, "You don't have to be afraid of anybody. You guys can handle anybody.
You guys will drop anybody."
It didn't really sink in until, probably that moment, that night. And then they kept us away from.
Very cool to hear about.
Yep. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Very cool to hear about the territory days and everything. Interesting how you talk about you were very much like a flag bearer for AWA. It's interesting to think about how the territories work, because we think, you work for one spot, that's your boss, you don't go anywhere, where, they kind of talk about this forbidden door, and like where you would jump over and work New York or work wherever, like you were talking. What was one of your favorite territories to travel outside of AWA to work?
I didn't ever spend any time in any.
Okay. Just kind of like a one-shot sort of deal.
The Johnny Rods. We went about 14 minutes and had the place standing. And when I got out of the ring, Vince Sr. said to me, "What was that?" I said, "Well, that was a wrestling match." And he said, "Well, how are my guys going to follow it?" And I said, "That's their problem."
Yes.
But, that's when things really started sinking into me. And we were down in Atlanta just for the 2 weeks. They never did put us with Orton and Slater because they were worried we were going to take over. We probably would have. And they were two good hands, but we had, I had wrestled Orton, both Jim and I had other times, and we had phenomenal matches with them. We were really looking forward to it, but they wouldn't give us the opportunity. And I think because we were only there for a short time, and if we would have established ourselves in 2 weeks, what is the rest of their talent? What are they going to do, when we leave?
Right.
So I don't know. That's kind of things that go through your mind of why they wouldn't do something. But, it was interesting.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how different promoters, even today, like seeing Rampage wrestle for different promoters, and kind of each promoter has their vision of what pro wrestling is and everything, and how they display.
Yeah.
Rampage, you got a shout out from a fan.
Yo.
Go ahead, Rampage. You're on, buddy.
Oh, dude, this is your show.
No.
Rampage, can you tell us the story from your perspective when Greg came and kind of picked you and JDX out of this crowd and kind of took you under his wing? What was that whole thing like, man? Like,
I mean, it was cool, because I was like young. Like when I first got the scholarship, I was like 17. And when I first started training, I was like 19, 20.
Okay.
And then like my second week, or maybe my first week, just a couple days into the like training with Ken, uh, I saw Greg training with Jess and
All right.
Dick Powers, Richard Powers.
Yes.
Tiffany Stratton used to bump him around a lot. And they were training, and then Greg like looked at me and was like, "You're not getting in here." And I was like, "I know, I'm just watching." And he told me I wasn't gonna get in there. But then he like looked back over at me. He was like, "Come here." He like made me get in the ring, and I had just literally learned how to like bump 2 days before, and he has me
Wow.
like on my like third, fourth day like doing flip bumps and like regular bumps and like running the ropes, like locking in headlocks, you know. So it's really fun like being able to train with Greg and then also be able to train with Ken. Because that's also like two different styles of pro wrestling, and when you mix a bunch of styles of pro wrestling, I feel like you get like the best pro wrestling there is. Uh, and then when like training with Greg is like I learned stuff that I'm not learning like when I'm wrestling some of the guys that I'm wrestling now. Um, you know, because his style is almost like it's just you don't see too much of it anymore. Like I feel like if you go to the NWA, you might get a little bit of that, and then maybe if you go to Japan, but like learning from Greg, some guys just throw in a wrist lock, but Greg makes you like throw it in the right way, and like, some guys will put on a headlock, but Greg makes sure that your chest puffing out and that your shoulders are out. Like I still get yelled at. Like me and JD are working on wrist locks with Greg, and he's like, fucking poke your chest out. Why are you hiding your face? And I'm like, I'm fucking trying, bro. Like, I'm like, chest out. I feel like I'm like peacocking hella hard. He's just like, you're not fucking doing it right. And he's like trying to show me how to do it. And then it's just like little stuff like that that makes your wrestling match that much better. You know, it's like if you get hit in the freaking face, you don't just like hold the one spot. Like you hold it, then you like touch your lip and check your tooth. And it's just little stuff that Greg teaches that really end up turning out to be really big stuff because that's the stuff that people notice. Because yeah, people see you bump, yeah, people see you throw a punch, yeah, people see you fall down, but then the stuff that Greg has been teaching and Ken's been teaching is like, okay, like now you got to have those people feel that, you know, like feel what you're feeling. It's not just an act that's happening. It's something that they're emotionally like feeling, you know, like my selling's just gotten so much better just off of like talking and talking to Greg and Ken. It's just Greg teaches the freaking the smallest stuff, and it you like at first you don't understand why you're learning it or why he's like pushing so hard on it, and just like, dude, can you shut your old ass up? You know, like you just leave me alone. Like I feel like I'm doing just fine, and I think I'm looking just fine, but he's really like giving you the stuff that'll like uh
Make you stand out over
exactly
everybody else.
give you big money. It's the littlest things. It could be like the way you hit the ropes, like your foot slides, like for example, when JDX hits the ropes, like you hear his freaking feet, like you know, past. I feel like when I hit the ropes, it's like really big. Like I like to jump into the ropes. Um, like when I snatch in a headlock, I really like make sure I'm grinding it, and I got like my like the chin, all that good stuff is in the pocket of the elbow, and that's all stuff that like Greg's taught. You know, it's the little stuff that matters, and that's gonna get you signed. That's gonna get you noticed. That makes the fans relate to you, and they don't know why they're relating because like they see that you're different from everybody else. They're like, but they can't tell exactly what's so different, and it's really just little stuff, and that's what Greg's taught me, and I feel like that's also the stuff that he's been talking about with coming out of Vern's camp, you know. And then it probably hurt so much because it's so much freaking repetition. Like I think we took like 20 back body drops, and then like we went to like monkey flips, and then to like hip tosses, and then to like regular flips, and then now we're dropping knees on each other's thighs and like faces, and like working Indian death locks.
Yeah.
It was just insane.
Good holds.
Yeah, I use all of them too. You say I can't lock in the sweeper, but I think I put it in pretty good. I watched your stuff and Burn stuff to figure out how to put it in.
And you got to learn how to put it on, put them out.
Yeah,
That's
I use
the
it. I love catching it when a guy's coming off the ropes, just out of nowhere, just slide right into it. So much fun.
Yeah, I love that AJZ match. That was amazing. I was grateful to be there ringside and get to interview both of you there.
Yeah, that's another guy that like honestly, like that's one of the guys that I've learned stuff from and also got to do the stuff that I already know because AJZ also does like the little stuff that Greg likes because like when you talk to him and like we're trying to put together a match, he's like, I really don't have that many fucking moves, bro. Like he's like, okay, we're gonna let's work these basics. Let's really sell. We're gonna work this hold. We're gonna do this, and it's like little stuff. And like to like a normal person, like I feel like if he was talking to someone else, and he's saying some of his ideas, they're gonna be like, okay, but like, what am I doing during that like short time after you're off like doing whatever, But to me, like, I understand that, like, okay, I'm selling, he's out there doing that, and like it's just the whole experience. Like, wrestling AJZ was awesome. He's so freaking smart in wrestling too.
Very
He
cool,
could.
man. Is there any story with you and Greg that you'd like to share in your history here?
Oh yeah, the time that old yeah, he was teaching us punches one day, and I walked. It was just me and Greg, and I had like a handprint on the side of my face and neck, a couple of them, from him teaching me how to like make it pop when you
Yes.
when you punch the guy. Greg, Greg taught me
Tell you
that.
what, guys, I got dinner going. Laura's got dinner over here for me, and she's giving me the eye.
Oh, hi,
Fair
Laura.
enough.
How are we doing here?
Yeah, well, we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up. Greg, what do you feel like was your defining moment in your career?
Defining moment?
Sergeant Slaughter's boot camp.
No. I had three times. My father, it was to get him to acknowledge you, to give you credit. I remember 3 times in my life. My last football game I played in high school, I completed like 13 out of 15 passes and ran for over 100 yards. And after the game, he said, "Man, I'm really proud of you." And then we're wrestling Tito Santana, Rick Martel, tag team match for the championship in San Francisco, Cow Palace. And the Cow Palace is a big open building. And we didn't know how they were going to react. So Martel and Santana go down to the ring. We're the tag team champions. And the people are going, "Boring, bullshit, boring." And we go, "God, well, guess you're going to cheer us." We came walking out, same thing. Boring, bullshit. I went, "Oh my God." So after 18 minutes of listening to that, we had the people standing. And then we wrestled another 25 minutes after that. And when we came back to the locker room, Ray Stevens,
Sorry, you're starting
Nick
to.
Bockwinkel, Vern, Baron Von Rasch, whoever's on the card, when it came over to us and told us it was the greatest match they'd ever watched. And they were proud of how we turned that crowd. And then I wrestled with Vern against Bockwinkel and Saito in St. Paul. And when the match was over, he looked at me and he said, "I didn't know, you're better than I ever was." And those are 3 compliments that I remember. That, and then one other match we had in Denver, Colorado. Jim and I were really accepted there because I had played football out in Wyoming. I think that had a lot to do with it. And we're wrestling Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens, and they call it a cold match. It was a championship match, but Pat had been away from the AWA and came back in, and Heenan was their manager. I brought him in for a title match against Jim and I, and it was sold out. And 8 minutes into the match, all they ever did, they had a top wrist lock on us, and they either pulled us down by the hair or our tights, or the referee, they would turn the referee and they would pull us down by the tights or the hair. There wasn't a punch or a kick thrown in the match. And in 8 minutes, we had a full-fledged riot. People trying to get in the ring to help us.
Change the fucking hold already. No, I'm kidding.
That's when you know you've made it.
Man, that's wild. That's wild. And when we got to talk to Road Warrior Animal, we asked him what being a road warrior meant to him. Greg, what did being a high flyer mean to you?
Well, it was just what did it mean? It was a time in my life. I was doing what I loved to do, and Jim and I were, I think, surprised a lot of people, not only here but around the country, around the world. We had a hell of a tournament in Japan where we beat Jumbo Tsuruta and Tenaru after 50 some minutes. The next night we had Giant Bubba and Dory Funk Jr., who was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. We beat them in 40-some minutes. And then the third match we had was Stan Hansen and King Kong Brody. That was a battle like I've never had before in my life. And we lost that match, but we had 2 weeks. We had a round robin deal, and we met them in the finals in the Tokyo Dome, sold out, and we won that match. So, you know, those are moments that you never forget. And as you move along in life and you look back at them, they were moments that really proved to yourself that, you know, you made it, you were successful. No matter how big you are, you can establish yourself, like, and they want to buy a ticket to see you, that you've done your job. And I always criticized for my size and that, but no matter who I wrestled with, they all gave me a lot of credit, a lot of fire, and had really good matches. I don't remember too many bad ones that I had. That sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm, you know, just thinking back, you always have a few bad ones, but I was very fortunate to be able to be in the ring with the people I was in with too. You have to give them a lot of credit.
Very cool. Amazing imagining the travels, the adventures, and all the stories throughout the years, man. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And Rampage Savage, get yourself in shape, buddy. Because the next time I see you, you better be ready.
I'll be ready.
And I mean soon.
I know.
All right?
I know.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And don't forget Power Town, where wrestling lives on. Get those action figures. The Remcos, they're still, pre-sales are still going, but I don't know how much longer they're going to go. They did 3 big, huge days. And then we'll have our Series 2 Ultra line coming out pretty soon. I'll give you a couple hints. Wahoo McDaniels, Junkyard Dog, Medusa.
Hints?
Just to name a few.
It sounds like spoilers. That don't sound like no hint.
Could be. There's more to come. All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
All right.
Have
Take
a good
care,
night,
guys.
Greg.
Rampage, call me.
I got you.
All right. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Hey, Rampage, you want to? Oh. 1 is the loneliest number that you... I just want to remind everybody, buy these State of Pro Wrestling t-shirts. Dude, I need to go for another mile jog and start doing some sit-ups, man. Now that I know Greg got the hookup and stuff, I got to start training to be the next Gagne guy. Ah, my shoulders are hairy like Mad Dog. I get crazy at bowling alley. I anger crowds. I cut hell of promo when I'm not doing bad foreign character evil man. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Greg Gagne, Rampage Santana, everybody who tuned in. Thank you so much. This is the year, man. The goal this year, drop so much hot content that they can't deny us. Kick in all those doors. Thank you. Have a great night.